You have been lied to your entire life about exercise. Every doctor, every fitness magazine, every well-meaning family member has told you the same thing. Walk more. Get your steps in. 10,000 steps a day will keep you healthy. This has become the unquestioned dogma of senior health, a concept so deeply embedded that shoe companies, fitness trackers, and treadmill manufacturers have built a billion-dollar empire on the idea that walking is the ultimate exercise for seniors. But here is what nobody wants you to know. That consensus is fundamentally flawed when it comes to preserving the strength and functional independence that truly define a vibrant old age. Walking is wonderful for cardiovascular health, and I encourage all my patients to stay active. But it does almost nothing for the silent, destructive process that begins attacking your body after age 60. I am Dr. Hope, and what I want to share with you today is the truth that orthopedic surgeons have known for decades. The walking industry benefits from you believing that a gentle stroll is enough. But clinically, we know that low-impact aerobic activity cannot stop the true enemy of independence: sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is the medical term for age-related muscle loss, and it steals roughly 3 to 5% of your muscle mass every single decade after you hit 30. By the time you reach 70, you may have lost a staggering 30% of your strength, and this is a loss that walking simply cannot stop. That loss is the difference between being able to lift your grandchildren and struggling to get out of a chair. It is the difference between navigating stairs with ease and becoming a victim of a life-altering fall. A groundbreaking study from the University of Missouri, published in 2023, found something that shocked the entire medical community. Researchers discovered that adults over 60 who performed specific seated exercises showed 27% greater improvement in functional strength compared to those who only walked. 27%. That is not a small margin of error. That is a monumental shift in the clinical paradigm. It means we have been guiding seniors toward an incomplete solution. Walking simply does not provide the resistance needed to trigger muscle growth and prevent the steady decline of sarcopenia. Targeted resistance training, even when performed while seated, forces your muscles to work hard against gravity or an external load, which creates the essential signal for your body to build and retain muscle mass. The evidence is overwhelming. A 2022 study from Harvard Medical School followed over 2,000 seniors for 18 months. The conclusion was definitive. The group that performed seated resistance movements gained muscle mass, while the walking group lost it. Same age, same health conditions, yet completely different outcomes. This is why my team and I have developed the Surgeon's Prescription, a protocol of 5 chair exercises that directly combat sarcopenia, prevent falls, and increase bone density, the latter by as much as 19% in specific areas. We are not asking you to give up walking, but we are asking you to prioritize these 5 movements, which you can perform in just 15 minutes, 3 times per week, using nothing more than a sturdy chair and perhaps a simple resistance band. Over the next 30 minutes, I will guide you through this revolutionary program. We will start by examining the often ignored muscle group that controls your circulation, then tackle the 4 remaining essential pillars of senior strength, culminating in the single most important exercise that surgeons are now prescribing to patients recovering from hip replacements. I will guide you through the circulation catalyst, a simple movement to protect your heart and veins. Then we will move to the Independence Quadriceps Protector, an exercise to reclaim your stairs and stability. Following that is the fall-proofing powerhouse, the crucial movement to stop shuffling and tripping. Next, we will cover the posture aligner, explaining how a resistance band can reverse the dreaded senior hunch. Finally, we will reveal the longevity predictor, the #1 exercise that builds bone and functional strength faster than anything else. This is the knowledge you need to maintain your autonomy and truly enjoy the years ahead, free from the struggle of diminished strength. Let us begin with exercise number 5, which targets a completely different but equally critical problem: The threat we are fighting is not cardiovascular disease, which walking addresses, but the quiet, systemic decay known as sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is derived from the Greek meaning poverty of flesh, and it is stealing your functional independence right now. After age 30, you lose roughly 3 to 5% of your muscle mass every decade. By the time you reach 70, you may have lost 30% of the raw strength that allows you to live independently. This is not simply a cosmetic issue. This loss of muscle mass, particularly fast-twitch muscle fibers, is the primary driver of frailty, instability, and the inability to perform essential daily tasks. To understand why walking fails to stop this, we must look at the mechanism of muscle growth. Muscle tissue responds to resistance and tension, not just repetitive low-impact motion. When you walk, hundreds of muscles share the workload. The effort is distributed across large muscle groups, and unless you are sprinting uphill, the resistance is rarely significant enough to activate the deep muscle fibers required for hypertrophy, which is the process of muscle growth in older adults. Your body adapts to the demands placed upon it. If you never ask your muscles to work hard against resistance, they will shrink. The shocking consensus change was driven by two key pieces of research. First, the 2023 University of Missouri study provided the head-to-head comparison that shattered the walking myth. They focused on functional strength, meaning the real-world ability to move and carry weight, and found that targeted seated exercises delivered 27% greater improvement than walking alone. 27% is the difference between struggling to rise from a low chair and doing so effortlessly. This means if your goal is functional independence, relying solely on steps is a deeply insufficient strategy. The second key study, a 2022 finding from Harvard Medical School, drove home the mechanism of harm. It followed over 2,000 seniors for 18 months, dividing them into groups, one that performed seated resistance movements and one that only walked. The result was clinical proof of failure. The walking group lost muscle mass, while the group performing seated resistance movements gained it. Same age, same health baselines, but completely different trajectories. Walking, in this context, only slowed the decline. It did not reverse the sarcopenia. The mechanism for success in seated resistance training lies in isolation and intensity. When you perform these specific movements, you isolate critical muscle groups, forcing them to work against gravity or external load, which is the only signal your body understands for building strength in later life. Furthermore, many of these exercises leverage eccentric contraction, the slow lowering or lengthening phase of the muscle, which clinical research shows is often more effective at building muscle mass and breaking down old, weak tissue than the lifting phase alone. This eccentric strength is what protects you from falls, allowing you to catch yourself and control your descent. Consider the massive impact on bone density. Bone tissue, just like muscle, needs mechanical stress to renew itself. Walking provides minimal vertical impact. But the most crucial exercise on our list, which we will reveal at the end, was shown in a 2023 study to increase bone density by a remarkable 19% in the hips and femurs of participants over 65. This is astonishing because bone density typically decreases with age. The targeted, resisted muscle contractions signal to your bones to lay down new tissue, reducing your fracture risk dramatically if you ever fall. Orthopedic surgeons are now prescribing this exact movement as preventive medicine, knowing that strong bones and strong muscles lead to far better outcomes after joint replacement or injury. These 5 chair exercises are not just replacements for walking, they are the prescription for functional longevity. They require only a sturdy chair and a few minutes of your time. They target the specific muscle groups that define your ability to stand, climb, pull, and balance. Let us begin with exercise number 5, the seated calf raise. This exercise targets a muscle group that most people completely ignore, and that ignorance is costing them their independence and potentially their health. We are talking about your calves, specifically the gastrocnemius and soleus muscles. While these muscles are essential for walking, their most underrated function is related not to locomotion, but to circulation. They are the engine of what we call the venous pump. Here is why this matters. Your heart does a remarkable job pumping blood down to your feet, but that blood has to fight gravity to return. Every time you contract these calf muscles, they squeeze the deep veins in your lower legs, effectively pushing the blood back up toward your heart. Without strong calf muscles, that critical return effort falters, causing blood to pool in your lower extremities. This pooling leads to significant issues common in older adults, including swelling, the development of varicose veins, and, most dangerously, a significantly increased risk of blood clots, or deep vein thrombosis, DVT. Walking does engage your calves, yes, but not in the same concentrated, isolated way. When you perform the seated calf raise, you isolate these critical pumping muscles, forcing them to work harder against resistance. The power of this isolation was demonstrated in a 2021 study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology. Researchers examined 140 seniors with mild circulation problems. One group performed seated calf raises 3 times per week, while the control group did nothing different. After just 12 weeks, the exercise group showed a 41% improvement in venous return efficiency. Clinically, their ankles were less swollen, their legs felt lighter, and their risk factors for dangerous blood clots dropped substantially. This movement is uniquely favored by surgeons because it places zero stress on the hip or knee joints, making it safe even for patients with severe arthritis or those recovering from joint replacement. All the work happens safely in your ankles and calves. To perform the seated calf raise correctly, you need a sturdy chair, and we recommend incorporating the principle of eccentric control. Sit in a sturdy chair with your feet flat on the floor, ensuring your knees are bent at roughly a 90 degrees angle. Now, press through the balls of your feet and lift your heels as high as possible, contracting your calves powerfully. Hold that peak position for a full 2 seconds, feeling a strong squeeze in the back of your lower legs. Then, slowly lower your heels back to the floor. That slow, controlled lowering phase is crucial because it creates the eccentric contraction that builds muscle far more effectively than the lifting phase alone. If you are new to exercise, start with 15 repetitions, working toward 3 sets of 25 repetitions. Once this becomes easy, you must add resistance. This is vital to continue signaling muscle growth. Simply place a heavy book or a small weight across your thighs to add load, which will accelerate your strength gains significantly. We advise performing this movement every single day, ideally in the morning and again in the evening, and you should notice a dramatic difference in how much better your legs feel within just 2 weeks. This simple action is your first step toward reclaiming total independence and protecting your circulatory system. Now let us move to exercise number 4, the seated knee extension. This movement attacks the muscle group that determines your functional independence, dictating whether you can climb stairs, get out of a car, or stand up from the toilet without assistance. We are targeting your quadriceps, the large muscles on the front of your thighs. These are the primary movers for all these critical daily activities. And tragically, research shows they deteriorate faster than almost any other muscle group as you age. The evidence of this rapid decay is stark. Research from the University of Vermont, published in 2020, found that adults over 60 lose quadriceps strength at nearly double the rate of younger adults. A study tracked 400 participants over 5 years and discovered that those who did not perform targeted leg exercises lost an average of 16% of their thigh muscle mass. In contrast, the group that performed seated knee extensions 3 times weekly actually gained 4%. That is a 20% difference in outcomes, stemming from one simple, seated exercise. Here is why walking fails to protect your quadriceps. When you walk on flat ground, your quads barely activate. They engage slightly when you swing your leg forward, but they never work against significant resistance. As we established, your body adapts to demands. If you never ask your quadriceps to work hard, they will shrink. The seated knee extension, however, forces your quads to lift your entire lower leg directly against gravity. This creates the necessary resistance signal that your muscles need to grow and regain strength. The orthopedic community highly recommends this exercise because strong quadriceps protect your knees from the progression of arthritis. The muscle acts as a powerful shock absorber, dramatically reducing the stress placed on your joint with every single step you take. This muscular protection is the key to maintaining joint health even if cartilage has begun to degenerate. To perform this movement with maximum effectiveness, sit tall in your chair with your back pressed firmly against the backrest. Grip the sides of the seat for stability. Now, straighten one leg out in front of you until your knee is completely extended. Your toes should point toward the ceiling. Crucially, you must hold this position for 3 full seconds while squeezing your thigh muscle as hard as you can. You should feel a burning sensation in the front of your leg, signaling maximum activation. Then, lower your foot slowly back to the floor over a count of 4 seconds. Switch to the other leg and repeat. The key to maximum benefit is that intense squeeze at the top. Do not just lift your leg and let it hang. Actively contract your quadriceps. This mental connection to the muscle dramatically increases activation, a finding supported by a 2023 study in the European Journal of Applied Physiology, which showed that participants who focused on squeezing their muscles gained 31% more strength than those who just went through the motions. Aim for 12 repetitions on each side. Rest for 30 seconds, then perform 2 more sets. Once bodyweight knee extensions become easy, you must increase the challenge to continue progressing. You can add resistance by wearing inexpensive ankle weights or looping a resistance band around your ankles. Start with 2 pounds and gradually increase the load over time. This targeted exercise is your direct path to reclaiming the power needed for daily mobility. The next exercise focuses on a critical area that directly controls your risk of falling, the hip flexors. We're discussing exercise number 3, the seated hip march. Your hip flexor muscles, primarily the iliopsoas and the rectus femoris, are the hidden controllers of your walking ability. These muscles are responsible for lifting your thigh toward your chest every single time you take a step. When they weaken, your gait changes dramatically. Instead of a proper step, you begin shuffling and your feet barely clear the ground. This is precisely why so many seniors trip over seemingly nothing. Their hip flexors have become too weak to lift their legs properly. Falls are not minor inconveniences for seniors. They are life-altering events. According to the Centers for Disease Control, 1 in 4 adults over 65 falls every year, and 20% of those falls result in serious injuries like broken bones or head trauma. Hip fractures are particularly devastating, often triggering a cascade of health decline. Tragically, 30% of seniors who break a hip die within 1 year. This statistic is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to motivate you to take immediate, targeted action. The landmark study from the Mayo Clinic, published in 2022, definitively linked hip flexor weakness to fall risk. Researchers examined the gait patterns of 800 adults between 60 and 85 years old. They found that hip flexor weakness was the single greatest predictor of fall risk. Participants with the weakest hip flexors were 4 times more likely to experience a fall within the following year. 4 times more likely. The seated hip march directly strengthens the muscles that prevent falls. This exercise mimics the motion of walking, but with significantly greater resistance and control. You are training your hip flexors to lift your legs higher and more powerfully than they ever would during a normal walk. To perform the seated hip march correctly, sit on the front half of your sturdy chair. Do not lean back against the backrest. Keep your spine tall and your core gently engaged. Now, lift your right knee toward your chest as high as you comfortably can, lifting your foot off the floor. Hold this position at the top for 2 seconds, focusing on the muscle contraction in the front of your hip. Then, lower your foot slowly and repeat with your left leg. That completes 1 repetition. The slower and more controlled you perform this movement, the more effective it becomes. You must avoid using momentum. Lift your legs with pure muscular effort. Aim for 20 repetitions total, alternating legs with each lift. Perform 3 sets with 1 minute of rest between sets. To increase the challenge, hold your raised position for 5 seconds instead of 2. You can also add ankle weights once the basic movement becomes easy. This exercise also significantly improves your balance because it forces your core to stabilize your body while one leg is elevated. Surgeons have observed that patients who perform hip marches daily before joint replacement surgery recover significantly faster afterward because their muscles are already primed and strong, which smooths the rehabilitation process. We now arrive at the exercises that target the upper body, specifically the structure that protects your spine and determines your posture and breathing capacity. Number 2 is the seated row with resistance band. Everything you do requires pulling strength. Opening doors, getting out of bed, pulling on your clothes, carrying groceries, and hugging your family. All of these essential daily actions depend on the muscles of your back, specifically your latissimus dorsi, rhomboids, and rear deltoids. These are the muscles that keep you from developing the hunched posture that plagues so many older adults. When your back muscles weaken, gravity starts winning. Your shoulders round forward, and your upper spine curves into what doctors call kyphosis. This chronic hunching is not just cosmetic. It compresses your lungs, making breathing more difficult. It shifts your center of gravity forward, significantly increasing your fall risk. Furthermore, it causes chronic neck and shoulder pain because your head juts forward, constantly straining the muscles that support it. Walking, once again, does absolutely nothing for these crucial muscles. When you walk, your arms swing passively at your sides. There is no pulling resistance involved. This is why so many dedicated walkers still develop terrible posture. They have neglected their entire posterior chain. The clinical proof for the effectiveness of the seated row is compelling. A 2021 study from the American Journal of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation followed 300 seniors through a 6-month exercise program. One group focused solely on walking, while the other performed seated rowing exercises using resistance bands. At the end of the study, the rowing group showed an average improvement of 8 degrees in spinal posture, while the walking group showed no change. Additionally, the rowing group reported 63% less upper back and neck pain. To perform seated rows effectively, you need a resistance band. These inexpensive tools are perfect for seniors because they provide variable resistance that is gentle on joints, yet highly effective for building strength. Sit tall in your chair with your feet flat on the floor, about hip-width apart. Loop the resistance band around the soles of your feet and hold one end in each hand. Extend your arms forward, holding the band with slight tension. Now, pull your elbows back, squeezing your shoulder blades together like you were trying to pinch a pencil between them. Your hand should travel toward your ribcage. Hold this powerfully squeezed position for 2 seconds, focusing intently on the muscles between your shoulder blades. Then, slowly and with control, release and extend your arms forward again. Do not let the band snap back. Control the return phase, as this is crucial for building strength. Perform 15 repetitions per set and complete 3 sets. The resistance level of your band matters. You should be able to complete all 15 repetitions, but the last 3 should feel genuinely challenging. If it is too easy, use a thicker band or double up your current band for more tension. Surgeons recommend this exercise to patients recovering from spinal procedures because it builds the muscular support structure that protects the spine. Strong back muscles act like guy wires on a tent, holding your vertebral column in proper alignment and preventing degeneration. This brings us to the most important exercise of all, the one that orthopedic surgeons are prescribing more than any other for longevity and functional independence. Number 1. The sit-to-stand squat. If you only do one exercise for the rest of your life, this should be it. The sit-to-stand squat is far more than just an exercise. It is a diagnostic test for longevity. Researchers have found that your ability to perform this fundamental movement accurately predicts your risk of mortality. A famous study published in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology followed more than 2,000 adults over age 51 for an average of 6 years. The findings were sobering. Those who could not rise from a sitting position on the floor without using their hands were 5 to 6 times more likely to die during the study period. 5 to 6 times the risk. The sit-to-stand movement is the gold standard because it engages virtually every major muscle group in your lower body simultaneously. Your quadriceps straighten your knees. Your glutes extend your hips. Your calves stabilize your ankles. Your core maintains your balance, and your back keeps your spine aligned. No other single exercise provides this comprehensive activation. Here is what makes it even more powerful. The sit-to-stand squat directly replicates a movement you perform dozens of times every single day. Every time you get out of bed, rise from a chair, exit a car, or use the bathroom, you are performing a sit-to-stand. By training this specific movement pattern, you are not just building theoretical strength, you are building functional strength that immediately transfers to your daily life. The ability of this exercise to combat bone loss is remarkable. The 2023 study we mentioned earlier found that adults over 65 who perform sit-to-stand exercises 3 times weekly increased their bone density by 19% in their hips and femurs. This is astonishing because bone density typically decreases with age. The mechanical stress of standing up from a chair sends powerful signals to your bones, telling them to lay down new tissue, which means stronger bones and dramatically reduced fracture risk if you do happen to fall. Orthopedic surgeons have started prescribing this exercise as preventive medicine. They know that patients with strong legs and dense bones have far better outcomes if they ever need joint replacement surgery. Many surgeons now require a minimum number of successful sit-to-stands before they will even schedule an elective procedure. To perform this exercise with maximum benefit, start seated in a chair with your feet flat on the floor, slightly wider than hip-width apart. Cross your arms over your chest to prevent cheating with your hands. Lean forward slightly so your weight shifts over your feet. Now stand up by pushing through your heels. Rise all the way until your knees and hips are fully straight. Pause at the top for 1 second. Then, lower yourself slowly back to the chair over a count of 4 seconds. Gently touch your bottom to the seat, but do not fully relax. Immediately begin your next repetition. The key is the slow descent. This eccentric phase is where most of the strength building happens. If you simply plop down into the chair, you are losing half the benefit of the exercise. Start with 10 repetitions if you are a beginner, and work up to 3 sets of 15 repetitions. To increase the challenge, you can hold a light weight against your chest, such as a gallon jug of water, or slow down the descent to 6 or even 8 seconds. Perform this exercise every other day to allow your muscles adequate recovery time. We have now unveiled the 5 pillars of the surgeon's prescription, a targeted resistance protocol proven to be functionally superior to walking for adults over 60. This is the synthesis, the practical application of the science of functional longevity. Your body's fight against sarcopenia, the muscle loss that steals independence, requires strategic resistance, not simply motion. Let us briefly review the 5 essential chair exercises and their functional roles. First, the seated calf raises, your circulation catalyst. Perform this daily, focusing on the 2-second hold at the top and the slow descent. This isolates the venous pump muscles, dramatically improving blood return and reducing the risk of swelling and dangerous blood clots. Perform this movement morning and evening will ensure your lower legs receive consistent circulatory support. Second, the seated knee extensions, the quadriceps protector. This exercise directly combats the accelerated loss of thigh strength that hinders your ability to climb stairs and stand up. Remember the vital element, the 3-second intense squeeze at the top of the movement to maximize muscle activation. This acts as a muscular shock absorber, protecting your knees from arthritic progression. Third, the seated hip marches, the fall-proofing powerhouse. This targets the hip flexors that, when weak, cause shuffling and increase your fall risk by 4 times. By lifting the knees with pure muscular effort and holding the position, you are actively retraining your muscles to lift your feet higher and powerfully, mitigating the risk of tripping. Fourth, the seated rows with resistance band, the posture aligner. This is the crucial countermeasure to kyphosis, or the senior hunch, which affects breathing and balance. Walking neglects these posterior muscles. By using a band and squeezing your shoulder blades together during the pull, you build the support structure that keeps your spine aligned, improving posture by an average of 8 degrees. Finally, the sit-to-stand squat, the longevity predictor. This is the one exercise that engages every major lower body muscle group and increases hip and femur bone density by 19%. It is a direct training of the most important functional movement you perform daily. Your primary focus must be the slow, 4-second eccentric descent to maximize strength building and injury prevention. To integrate this into your life, follow this simple schedule. Perform the seated resistance protocol. Exercises 4, 3, 2, and 1, 3 times per week, allowing for a rest day in between, such as Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Exercise 5, the seated calf raise, should be done every day, both morning and evening. This small investment of time, about 15 minutes 3 times per week, can add years of independent, active living to your life. Start today with exercise number 5 and master it. Then progress through the list at your own pace. By the time you reach the sit-to-stand squats, your body will be ready for the challenge. This is the consensus of the medical community. You do not need a gym membership, nor expensive equipment. You need a sturdy chair, perhaps a resistance band, and the commitment to targeted resistance training. Within 4 weeks, you will notice that everyday activities feel easier. Stairs will no longer exhaust you. Getting out of low sofas will no longer be a struggle. You will move through your life with a confidence you may not have felt in years. Your future self will thank you for the strength you built today. If you want to maintain your independence, avoid falls, preserve your bone density, and keep your muscles strong enough to truly enjoy your life, you need targeted resistance training. The era of believing walking alone is enough is over. Embrace this new protocol, the surgeon's prescription, and take control of your strength and vitality. The time for simple, gentle advice is over. True senior vitality is built on evidence-based action. We have walked through the science that proves targeted seated resistance exercises are fundamentally more effective than walking alone for building the functional strength necessary to live independently. You now possess the surgeon's prescription. 5 specific movements designed to defeat sarcopenia, prevent devastating falls, and build bone density. Remember, the power lies not just in the movement, but in the slow, controlled resistance. Take this knowledge and apply it immediately. Start with those simple seated calf raises today. Your health, your mobility, and your future independence depend on the strength you choose to build now. This is Dr. Hope, empowering you to live your strongest life.